The police dog froze the moment he saw the man standing across the training yard. It was as if the world around him suddenly lost all sound. The officers were still talking, the wind was still pushing dry leaves across the pavement, and the sun still warmed the air, but to the K9 named Arrow, none of that existed anymore. His eyes locked onto the man's posture, the faded jacket, the shape of the shoulders, and something deep. Inside him, something ancient and instinctive recognized what his mind had not yet fully processed. His ears dropped, not in fear, but in a sorrow so heavy it almost bent his body. His breathing changed, trembling in a way the officers had never seen before. And then, unable to hold it in, the proud, disciplined police dog began to cry. It wasn't the sharp whimper puppies make when they want attention. It was a deep, aching sound, pulled from memories buried far too long. The officers stared in confusion, unsure whether this was fear, pain, or something far more complex, but Arrow knew exactly who the man was, even before the officers walked him forward. And the man, with eyes full of exhaustion and regret, seemed just as stunned to see the dog reacting to him like a ghost returning home. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please like this video, share it, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more people who need them. Years before that moment, Arrow had not been a police dog. He was nothing more than a frightened, underfed stray rescued during a raid on an illegal backyard kennel. The memory of that day still lived inside him. The sound of broken boards, the shouts, the sudden rush of light flooding the dark shed where cages were stacked on each other. Arrow remembered the smell of blood and fear, remembered the shadow of a man who ran the place, and remembered how helpless he felt as he tried to shield two smaller dogs with his own body. He had been barely more than a teenager in dog years, but even then, he had that extraordinary instinct to protect. The officers who raided the place took him in, patched him up, and trained him. Arrow rose quickly through the K9 program because he learned fast, loved deeply, and trusted fiercely. But he carried scars, some physical, many emotional. His trainers learned not to bring up the past. Arrow worked best when he could forget. But life has a way of bringing the past to the doorstep of those who try hardest to outrun it. The man now standing before Arrow wasn't anyone the officers recognized. To them, he was just another volunteer from a rehabilitation program, one of many trying to rebuild their lives by doing community service. He was quiet, kept to himself, wore long sleeves even on hot days, and rarely met anyone's eyes. But there was something strange about him. He walked with a guilt that clung to him like a shadow. He avoided any place where the K9 units worked, and if he saw Arrow or any other dog, he found a reason to turn away. The officers didn't think much of it until the day they needed help repairing a section of the training yard fence, and he had nowhere left to hide. The moment Arrow saw him, the tears began. The officers exchanged glances. K9S didn't react like this without reason, and Arrow wasn't just any K9, he was their most emotionally intuitive. Everyone in the unit knew it. The man stiffened, his face draining of color as Arrow slowly approached, trembling. When the dog reached him, he lowered himself close to the ground, pressing his forehead against the man's leg, not in fear, but in a heartbreaking mixture of recognition and longing. It shook the man so deeply that he had to place a hand on his own chest to steady himself. Something inside him cracked open, something he had buried so deep he had convinced himself it wasn't part of him anymore. As Arrow clung to him, the memories the man had tried to bury came rushing back. He had once been the owner of that illegal kennel, not out of cruelty at first, but out of desperation. Life had hit him hard, and survival had twisted his judgment. What began as breeding dogs to earn money spiraled into neglect, then overcrowding, then suffering he never imagined he would cause. He had convinced himself he would fix it tomorrow or next week, but the animals paid the price for his weakness long before he ever admitted guilt. Arrow had been one of those dogs, a pup he had separated from its mother because someone had offered cash for a German Shepherd mix. But when the buyer didn't show up, Arrow was shoved into one of the cages in the dark shed. The man remembered that night clearly, remembered the frightened eyes staring at him. But he kept the lights off and walked away. That memory haunted him for years. It was the first thing he thought of when he woke up in jail, and the last thing that visited him each night as he tried to sleep. Now, standing in front of the dog he once abandoned, he collapsed to his knees. Not physically at first, but inside. He tried to look away, ashamed to see forgiveness in eyes that had every right to hate him. But Arrow nudged his hand with a soft whine. almost as if telling him, "I remember you, but not in the way you fear." The officers, still stunned by Arrow's emotional collapse, called for the K-9 handler. When he arrived, even he was struck silent. Arrow wasn't just recognizing a scent from years ago, he was confronting a piece of his past that had shaped the very soul he carried. The handler gently asked the man if he knew the dog. The man hesitated, swallowed hard, and silently nodded. The admission was enough to prompt a deeper investigation, but something unexpected happened. As the officers began to question him, Arrow pressed himself closer to the man, refusing to leave his side. The officers saw something in Arrow's actions that told them this wasn't fear or trauma resurfacing. It was something purer. Arrow sensed the man's remorse, real remorse, and responded to it with the only language dogs truly speak: compassion. The man eventually broke down completely, not in front of the officers, but later in a quiet moment, sitting on the cold concrete behind the station. Arrow sat beside him the entire time. The dog, who had every reason to growl, to bite, to reject him, instead leaned against him as if offering a second chance. That moment shattered something inside the man and rebuilt it in a way he never expected. He confessed everything that night, not only to the officers but to himself. From then on, something remarkable happened. The officers noticed Arrow behaving differently whenever the man came to do his volunteer hours. The dog would seek him out, follow him, watch him work quietly. The man treated Arrow with a tenderness that surprised everyone. He handled him gently, brushed him, gave him water without being asked, and even repaired a broken toy Arrow had carried since his academy days. The bond was undeniable and strange. It defied explanation, yet felt completely natural. But the biggest change happened the day a loud noise on the training field startled the man. He flinched and stumbled backward, his past trauma from jail triggered by the sudden sound. Arrow rushed to him instantly, offering comfort with the same instinct he used when comforting children during search and rescue missions. It was then the officers realized that Arrow didn't only remember the pain, he also remembered the man's moments of softness from years ago, a hand that once gave him food, a fleeting moment of affection before everything fell apart. By the time the man's rehabilitation program neared its end, Arrow's behavior had made one thing clear: he didn't just recognize the man, he forgave him. And in that forgiveness, the man began forgiving himself. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like the video, subscribe, share it with someone you care about, and help us spread more real emotional stories like this one. Before we end, please write one word in the comments describing how this story made you feel. On the final day of the man's volunteer service, the officers allowed him a few quiet minutes alone with Arrow. The dog sat in front of him, tail still, eyes soft. The man placed his hand gently on Arrow's head, shocked by how warm and steady the dog felt beneath his trembling fingers. For years, he had carried guilt like chains that never loosened. But in that moment, with a single breath, he felt them fall away. Arrow lifted his head and pressed it briefly into the man's chest, as if acknowledging the long journey from cruelty to healing. When the man stood to leave, Arrow watched, but didn't cry this time. He understood. He had already given the man what he needed, a chance to become someone better than his past. And sometimes, in the quiet spaces where breath meets forgiveness, that is enough to change a life forever.